Good news, everyone! I've found a perfectly innocuous topic utterly devoid of any and all controversy for tonight's video. That topic? April 4th's gas attack on the Syrian town of Khan Sheikhoun. Now, I may be mispronouncing that, but that's hardly the most important point here. So, I get that it's a wee bit controversial, but there was a radio show on the CBC program The 180 with Jim Brown, aired as of last Sunday, April 9th, that I think warrants addressing. The segment, with featured guest and philosophy professor Michael Labossiere, advances the argument that we should not hold chemical weapons as being worse or in any way more reprehensible than conventional munitions, and I do believe him to be incorrect. He argues that the red line, as it has been called, should be set at the killing of people rather than the killing them with chemical weapons. Labossiere's argument is, as he puts it, quote, "The difference, the distinction, between not killing people at all and killing them is far greater than the moral distinction between killing people with conventional weapons and killing them with chemical weapons." End quote. Now, I understand that Michael is a philosophy professor, and he is attempting to speak on what he perceives as the pertinent objective facts, and representing them with moral and ethical weights that he feels are appropriate. That's fine. But I would still argue that the distinction between killing people and killing them with chemical weapons, from which, for some reason, he separates the use of incendiaries like napalm, is more pertinent than the basic distinction between killing and not killing at all. Now, while it is mentioned that conventional weapons can cause horrific deaths via crushing from falling rubble and destroyed buildings, and the physical mangling of those who survive their initial injury by something like a gunshot wound, grenade, rocket, or artillery shell fragment, or a mine, missile, or bomb blast, these weapons are designed to cause near instantaneous death through explosive blunt force, trauma, massive tissue damage, and the like. Where bombs, missiles, bullets, and grenades may have their problems with accuracy, the gap in the likelihoods of being either killed or wounded in such a way that is, ultimately, one from which the victim can almost fully recover is very, very small, where the range of effects from chemical weapons and the amount of time that it can take such weapons to kill their victims has a very wide and very varied spectrum. Now, I suppose that my argument overly simplifies the situation, however, it is what it is. Professor Labossiere attempts to defend hypothetical situations in which chemical weapons used on live battlefields could be as humane as the comparison between conventional execution methods like hanging or firing squad, but I find that the argument is almost laughable for several reasons. The primary issue is that he's attempting to argue against current reality with a hypothetical one. As it stands, nerve agents such as sarin, choking agents like phosgene, and the iconic blistering agent sulfur mustard gas, infamous for its widespread use in the First World War, are far less precise in battlefield usage and far more likely to have their ultimate effectiveness affected by environmental factors than conventional munitions. This relative unreliability and the inability to control for the variables that enable lethal injection procedures, as flawed as they have been proven to be, even in near perfectly controlled environments, to be viewed as humane, is what makes Labossiere's argument one which is deeply flawed. Civilian casualties and other forms of collateral damage are inevitable when waging war. However, although they are inevitable, just as Buddhist teachings lead their followers to seek to minimize the amount of suffering in the world, which is itself considered in Buddhist doctrine to be an unavoidable part of life, we should, in waging war, seek to minimize the amount and severity of collateral damage in any war at all. As chemical weapons are, 1. More likely to see their precision affected by common battlefield conditions, resulting in a greater likelihood of collateral damage, 2. More likely to result in a prolonged demise or grievous tissue damage from which victims may not die but never properly recover, and 3. More psychologically traumatizing and intimidating to most combatants and civilians, I would argue that they are, in all currently known realities, less moral and ethical a way of waging war, if there can be any scale of morals or ethics applied to war at all. I feel that it warrants saying, if only to assuage my own guilt about publishing a video on such a depressing topic, that I derive no amount of entertainment from this discussion, but rather feel that it is one for which there exists a need that it take place. Chemical weapons are not, as Professor Lavoisier implies, in any way, or in any practical way, similar to the chemical compounds and administration procedures involved with lethal injection executions. Napalm clings to fabrics, foliage, and flesh, burning its victims to the bone. Mustard gas burns and blisters its victims, blinding and crippling where it does not kill. And nerve agents like sarin gas, the chemical weapon allegedly used in last Tuesday's attack in Syria, cause the breakdown of the nervous system, suffocation, vomiting, defecation, urination, and convulsions. These are not, and have never been, the sterile, humane deliverers of death that men like Fritz Haber, chemistry pioneer and leader of Germany's weaponized gas programs in World War I, thought they would become. Now, given the choice, I'd much rather be shot than gassed, and I have often advocated for the crude and messy firing squad if it is deemed necessary that the state should execute dangerous criminals. The way I see it, a 12-gauge shotgun slug through the head is far quicker and less complicated, and less prone to complications than lethal injection, and it costs a damn sight less as well. Chemical weapons are and have always been inhumane, if any form of killing could be deemed humane at all, and it is for the reasons that I have put forward in this video that I believe we are absolutely justified in drawing the red line, as some would call it, at the use of chemical weapons in warfare, and not simply at the killing of people at all. Well, this has been a particularly depressing bit of content, and I apologize for any negative effect it may have had on you. I've put forth my position as I believe it is an important distinction, and one that we as a society ought to maintain. Because of the subject matter, and my thoughts that it would be inappropriate to directly attach anyone's name to this video but my own, I will not be listing my patrons at the end of this video. Though I would like to think that everyone out there is smarter than that, I recognize that some might think that my patrons endorse every single video that I produce, and when it comes to a controversial topic such as this, I feel the need to point out that their support and most of my non-gaming content is based on quality research and preparation, and the aim of developing better production values in the future, as opposed to the individual topics that I choose to cover. In any case, I would like to thank you all for your support, and if you're new to my channel, ask that you consider liking, sharing this video, and most importantly, subscribing to follow my content in the future. Have a good night, everybody.